over 50,000 euros in dispute and invoice, of over 3,000 euros plus court costs, plus my attorney's fees. And all of this because of 6 gemstone bottles and 3 stones. I'm Julia, and thank you for being here. For me, it's a heavy burden as a single mother working in animal protection. When I was briefly unemployed in 2023, I thought I'll use the time and started training for permanent youth structures. But shortly after that, I found work in animal protection again, just like I had worked in animal protection before. I continued with the training anyway. The father of my son lives in Asia, and because of that, we travel somewhere in Asia for about 1 to 2 months every year and meet up there. I started noticing more and more of the animals there, especially the many street animals. And then I started increasingly, as people were no longer traveling on tourist routes as much and were becoming more and more independent, they naturally noticed this more and more. It increasingly became about the financial aspect. Because, of course, when I see this animal suffering, I always help, which many tourists unfortunately do not do, I have to say. They are either very blind to this suffering or at least do not intervene. It is of no use to a dog that has wounds down to the bone if you say, oh dear, oh, but then you just get in your bus and drive on to the next beach. Exactly, and those are the situations where I always take action. And now it's such that I really go there with bags full of food. And then I actually provide food, water, and medication there daily. Many animals there have worms or skin diseases. You can easily help a street animal just by providing food, but it's also quite expensive. For each animal, it costs between 25 to 50 euros if you buy it there, depending on what's available. And usually it's not just one animal that you meet there every day. And then there are also animals that are really seriously ill, like those with large wounds and so on, which you really have to take to the vet. I have done all of these things and continue to do so increasingly over the years, more and more. But it's obviously quite burdensome when you only have this single parent healing salary from animal welfare. And so it increasingly became noticeable that it was having a significant financial impact. Then I discovered some very beautiful gemstone bottles in Bali where we were last year. And I had never seen anything like it before. I thought it was very pretty. They had them there in Newwood, in stores, everywhere. So I bought one for myself, one for my sister, and my son wanted one too. But it's already kind of broken on the way. But anyway, 3 bottles for sure. Exactly. Then we flew back home. That was around summer last year. And so during this time, my face yoga training was also completed. And I thought, well, then I'll register a small business, because it could happen that if you start posing on social media or something, someone might ask, do you also offer private lessons, etc.? And then you can just say, sure, I can do that. That hasn't happened so far. Right now, I'm doing everything for free, so I'm creating content for free, so people can consume it if they want. And I enjoy doing it too. It's a balance to this demanding animal welfare work. And I think it's really important that we take time for ourselves and invest a little in self-care and also in other things and so on. So it's a nice balance for me. And so that's how it came about that I registered this small business. And somehow the gemstone bottles were also on the desk back then. And I thought maybe I could also set up a small online shop where I could offer these bottles. And then I started looking into it a bit. I saw that for around 100 euros, you can have a small annual online shop. And you could connect that a bit with this face yoga. It's also kind of going in that direction, I would say. So the U-boat is also a yoga hotspot. And then I researched these bottles and found that they are exactly the same. There are also plenty of gemstone bottles on Amazon, Kaufland Media, and so on. Anyway, there are plenty of gemstone bottles. I just wanted to see if it looks like only one person is selling them, etc. That definitely wasn't the case. And then I checked AliExpress to see if I could photograph a bit of a selection and just tried it out, at least. And then I bought 3 more on AliExpress. So in total, I had 6 bottles. And again, about 3 stones to swap out so that you can take nice photos of them and just see if there's any demand at all. I thought that if this were to take off somehow, like anything else, I could theoretically sell it as a zero-issue product on Amazon or something like that. Buy them here and then just send them to the person and then expand it in the long run if it goes well. Exactly. And then I got my bottles, took photos, took some nice photos of them in the garden in the summer and then put them up on eBay. So I sell used stuff there. Yeah, and then it was all good. I didn't think much more about it. That was all registered as well. I didn't want any trouble with taxes and all that because one could say there was a certain intention to make a profit behind it. And I thought that everything was fine. And then around the summer, after about a month, I think it was a month, there was a sale on eBay. And Then I sent the bottle there and it came back. Then there was a nice contact on eBay saying that the name wasn't big enough on the mailbox. If I could please send it again, so I had to go to the post office with my son. I still remember it was a terrible rainy day and all. But well, of course you do it. I went back, sorted everything out, and it was sent again. It came back, and then I wrote to eBay again saying that something probably wasn't right because otherwise all the items wouldn't be coming back everywhere. Well, then I didn't get any more response, and then I received a warning from the company's lawyers, Vita Juve by mail, and exactly in this case over 2,000 euros were demanded. The destruction of the bottles, information about where they came from, to whom they were sold, all that. I was of course totally shocked at first. The basis was that it was argued through design rights that the bottles were too similar to those of Vita Juve. So Vita Juve holds design rights to Gemstone bottles, and yes, they are just too similar to theirs. And accordingly, I shouldn't have been allowed to offer them here. I had never heard anything about design rights until then. I also want to briefly mention that eBay had a simple function where you could click on design rights violation, etc. Then eBay just removes these items and the person receives a notification. Also, they consciously decided to take this path, and then I did some research. I also found that Amazon and so on are reselling them. I looked into design law, and indeed Vita Jewel has registered a ton of designs there. But I also found a design for a Gemstone bottle from 2005 from another company. It's not identical, but it has a similar basic idea, and somehow all of this seemed very dubious to me. I also looked that up. Design law is basically a database of the EU, and it works in such a way that you can register every design there. So, you pay a fee. If the application is filled out correctly, it will be registered. And exactly, that means that it is not checked whether it is justified or not in that sense, but simply if you pay and fill out the application correctly, it will be included. And that's exactly how you can imagine this database. It contains everything that exists, which makes it super opaque. And I sent a letter saying that as it wasn't that important to me, I took all of the bottles out, and sent a letter saying that I only had these 10 bottles in total. And by that I meant the stones too. I had it all together. I had this amount. There were only these 10, there were no sale. I'm taking all of that out and I'm leaving it at that. I removed it, sent it to the lawyers, and then thought that was it. This was followed by an interim injunction from the Regional Court of Düsseldorf. They have now again placed me under detention, among other things, prohibiting me from selling these bottles, which was basically quite unnecessary because, to be honest, they were already out there. So there was nothing left on the internet. Exactly, and then there were also court costs. They submitted a huge bundle of all the judgments that the lawyers from Vita Juve have already obtained, with some stars who have held the bottles on Instagram or in various TV shows, seeing this bottle already was, etc. So yeah, in the meantime, I also sought legal advice from a practicing lawyer, of course, for a fee, just like normal. And he then advised me that we should now make a final statement and acknowledge this, because the problem is that design law is also very complex. It is, of course, always a matter of interpretation and so on, and that there's also a great risk of losing such a case because it really comes down to the question of how similar it is or not. And, well, it's not identical now, but when is it too much? And yes, if the value in dispute is set at 50,000 euros, that's also something along the lines of where it could end up. And then he said that as a single mother, he supports me with an animal welfare salary. And so he really can't advise me on this, just that it's not essential for me to sell these bottles. I have to say, I wasn't trying to start a bottle business or anything like that. Well, and so it happened that I submitted this cease and desist declaration and a closing statement acknowledging everything and so on. And the only thing we wanted to talk about was, I explained my situation a bit, that I am a single mother, I have a 6-year-old son, and I want to emphasize again that not a single bottle was sold. And if we can agree on a fee between 1,200 and 1,500 euros for the lawyers now, in 3 installments. And yes, that was rejected. Then I received a bill back for over 3,000 euros just for the lawyers. On top of that, there are court costs. They will probably amount to around 1,000 euros. My own legal costs are 500. The shop, of course, is also 100 euros. Again, everything for me, as I said, part-time salary, animal welfare is extremely high. But we're talking about several months' salaries here. And yes, what really frustrates me is that all the money I've been trying to save up over the year to help the animals in Asia is completely gone, already used up with the first installment. But now the next one is coming. And now I'm going to get an advance on child support from my son's father so that I can even afford to pay this. And this is going to continue. There will be another installment for the lawyers, and then the court costs will come. So it's really an amount that just exceeds everything we spend money on in bulk. And this extent and everything, I have to say, I am extremely appalled by how this has gone down. On one hand, of course, because you didn't even know that this form existed. So it would have been clear to me that I can't just copy a bottle exactly or write a fake brand on it, etc. Copyrights and so on, of course, you already know. But these dimensions, and that even today, the identical bottles are really being sold on Amazon, and they deliver in 2 or 3 days. Kaufland also had the same bottles on offer the last time I checked. They are really being sold here in Germany. And yes, I was really surprised that these funds and everything could come together like this. I would be incredibly happy if I could get some support, if you would support me with any amount. I know we are all extremely different in terms of the opportunities we have. I would appreciate any amount. I know what it's like when you don't have much and, of course, can give less than others. And I would be grateful for any amount or any support and solidarity. And I also wanted to say, in case something happens, if it should go beyond the amount needed, which I don't believe will happen, because just the bills I have here already amount to over 3,500 euros, so over 3,000 to your lawyers, over 500 to my lawyers. But I just wanted to say, you never know, just in case anything that goes beyond that, I would put towards filling the account for the street animals in Asia, so that I can still, as my plan is, actually I was hoping to go with some savings and not be completely broke, so that I can hopefully help more effectively. I already had plans for how it could go, that maybe we could also do some neutering and stuff if we gather enough support to make some fundamental changes. So I would be super, super grateful if you have any way to support me. And even if not, I definitely thank you for listening and for staying here for so long.